Hello students, welcome to the class. Now this is part 2 of a previous video on conditional clauses. Let's take a quick review of what we learned in the previous video. We have understood that conditional sentences have a conditional clause and an independent clause. And conditional clauses can start with conjunctions like if, when, unless, provided, in case, suppose, etc. Now, conditional clauses can be factual or predictive or even speculative. Factual when they represent true facts, when the condition always satisfies. Predictive when the condition is highly likely to happen or be satisfied, and speculative when the conditions and their consequences are generally imaginary. Now, factual conditions can be represented or called as zero conditional sentences also, and predictive conditions where there is a high likelihood of the condition being satisfied are called as first conditional sentences. And speculative conditions or imaginary conditions can be grouped into second and third conditional sentence. In the previous video, we also learned about zero conditional sentences and first conditional sentences. Now, zero conditional sentences are those sentences when the condition and the result always hold true. So these are used to represent facts which are generally true, like scientific facts. So the condition always has the same result. And if you observe the structure of zero conditionals, we found that the verb in the condition as well as the result is in the same form, that is simple present. If you heat ice, it melts. Heat and melts both are in present simple. If you stand in the rain, you get wet. Stand and get, both of them are in present simple. Now, we also learned about first conditionals. Now, first conditionals are those sentences where the condition is representing a possible situation. For example, if it rains, we will cancel the trip. Now, here, if it rains is the condition, which is highly possible or highly likely. Then, the result is in the present or the future. Now, this is used where the situations to talk about a possible situation in the future. It is also used to predict a likely result in the future if the condition happens. If you study, you will pass the exam. If you study, that's the condition, and the likelihood is you'll pass in the exam. Now, the tense form is present simple in the condition clause and will or won't plus the simple present of the verb, that is in the main clause. Okay, so now let's talk about the video where we are looking into speculative condition sentences. Now, speculative conditions can be unlikely possibilities. For example, if she invested wisely, she might regain her losses. Here you find that the word invested in the condition is used in the past tense. That means she did not do it. Or there is a very unlikely possibility of she regaining her losses in the present or the future. So another imaginary condition is like contrary to the fact. For example, if I were rich, I wouldn't have to work. Now, the very condition, if I were rich, denotes that that person is not rich. So this is contrary to the fact. It's an imaginary situation. Or it can also be used to talk about imaginary or hypothetical events, like if you had asked me, I would have told you. Now that means you didn't ask me in the past and I did not tell you in the past. So these are some imaginary or hypothetical events which will never happen. So speculative conditions can talk about all these three categories. Okay, now let's look at a group of sentences which talk about one of these speculative conditional sentences. If I had money, I would buy a car. If I knew the answer, I would tell it to you. If I were a bird, I would fly away. I would visit my grandma more if I had time. Now, what do you observe in these conditional sentences? One thing you might have noted is all these sentences talk about imaginary conditions and their consequences in the present or future. So these conditional sentences are having a condition which is an imaginary condition, and the consequence could be in the present or the future. And you might have also observed that the if condition is in the simple past tense. Now, such conditional clauses or sentences are called as second conditional clauses, where the condition is expressed in the simple past and the result or the consequence is talked about with would and the present form of the verb. So, this is about a very unlikely event. If it happens, the condition says, if it happens, so and so, there could be some action. Right. So the second conditional is a structure used for talking about unreal situations, imaginary situations in the present or in the future. So understand this carefully. They are talking about imaginary situations in the present or the future. Now the if clause and the main clause, as any conditional clause sentence will have. Now the if clause has the verb in the simple past, and the main clause will have verb would plus the simple present of the verb. I would buy a big house if I had $1,000,000. Now try this exercise. You might do this, and these are all in second conditional terms. What would you do if you could travel into the future? What would you do if you saw an alien? What would you do if you were the smartest person alive? What would you do if you had a spaceship? What would you do if animals could talk? Now, all of these sentences are asking us to record a sentence in a second condition. One or three. I have tried one or three, and I leave the rest for you to do at home. Now, if I could travel into the future, I would meet aliens. Observe this carefully. Could is in simple past, the condition, and would meet is the result. If I saw an alien, I would shake hands with him, of course, if he had any. Now, saw is in simple past, and would shake is would plus the present form of the verb. So the condition is in the past, and the result is being expected to happen in the present or the future. If animals could talk, they would be the best speakers in the world. So if animals could talk, that's in past, they would be the best speakers in the world, present or future. Now, this is how the second conditionals work. Fine. Now let's look at another speculative condition, which is also called as the third conditionals. Now, before we understand what is third conditional, let's look at this little instance here. Last month, Gary was in a hospital for an operation. Now, Lena didn't know about this and she didn't go to visit him. They met a few days ago and Lena said, if I had known that you were in hospital, I would have gone to visit you. Now try to look at what is happening here. If I had known that you were in hospital, that means she didn't know that he was in hospital. It's a past situation, unreal situation, because she did not know. If she had known, that's an unreal situation in the past. I would have gone to visit you. Now there is also an imaginary consequence in the past. So both of these are in the past and both of these are imaginary. So this is a third conditional sentence. So in a third conditional sentence, what we are doing is we are talking about an unfulfilled imaginary event in the past. So the condition as well as the result, both of them are in the past. So an action that will not happen in the present, it did not happen in the past. So naturally, the if clause will have the verb in past perfect form, and similarly the result or the main clause will have would have plus the past participle of the verb. So this is the structure of a third conditional sentence. If plus past perfect, and then the main clause will be like would have plus past participles. We always talk about imaginary situations in the past when we are discussing third conditionals. If I had got a gold medal, I would have been happy. So that means I did not get a gold medal, I'm not happy. Hence I was sad and I was not happy. Both the condition and the result are in the past time. So we are talking about imaginary situations in the. Okay, now I have given you a little exercise to do so that you might be more able to understand the third conditional. Now here we have some sentences, situations, and we are to use the third conditional. Sam didn't get up early, he was late for work. So we can write it in this fashion. If Sam had gotten up early, which he did not do, he wouldn't have been late for work. So now observe the structure. Had gotten, past perfect, wouldn't have been, it's the perfect participle. Okay, we didn't bring our umbrellas, we got wet. Had we brought our umbrellas, we would not have gotten wet. Jake didn't study, he failed the test. Had Jake studied, he wouldn't have failed the test. I rode the bicycle, I fell off. Had I not ridden my bicycle, I would not have fallen off. I met him yesterday, I knew his name. Had I not met him yesterday, I would not have known his name. The rest for you to do at home. That's an exercise. Now let's have a quick review. Now we were discussing about the different types of conditional sentences. So a zero condition is when the condition and the result are always the same, true. Whatever the condition says, it is always satisfied. Zero condition. First condition, there is a condition and it is very highly possible. So you get a first conditional. And the structure is present simple and will plus the present simple verb. Second conditional, it is an imaginary situation and the result is in present or future. And the condition is in past. Imaginary condition in the past, result is in present or future. Third conditional, the condition is in the past, even the result is in the past. Okay, so other conjunctions can also be used in place of if. You can also use when, you can use unless, provided, as long as, so long as, on condition. And these are some other conjunctions which can be used in place of if. So when is used when the condition is expected to be met, and unless is used when the condition is not expected to be met. Okay, now we have a little textbook exercise also, page 151, and here are some sentences where we are used to replace conjunctions. You did better submit the report on Friday. Rewrite the sentence using were. Now how will you do that? If I were you, I would submit the report on Friday. If you do not work, you will not be paid. Use unless. Now, unless you work, you will not be paid. She was not careful, so she lost her purse. Use had been. If had she been careful, she would not have lost her purse. You will not feel tired in summer provided you take a lot of fluids. You will not feel tired in summer provided you take a lot of fluids. Okay, so this is the conclusion of the part 2 of conditional clauses. Hope you understand it, and if you have any doubts or queries, you can put a query on the blogspot departmental or send a mail to departmental mail ID, or you can contact or WhatsApp us on the numbers given. Thank you. Keep watching the videos.